Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Sound Design Mondays. I'm your host, Sansworld, and today we're going to be creating a W&W lead. It's been one of the most requested leads previous year, and it's taken me a while to get to it. I've had it done for a while, but I was waiting for the right time to release it as a tutorial. So the new year is in, new you, new me. This is how the sound is going to sound like. Okay, so if you like the sound, stick around. It's not that identical. It's identical in a way. I think what's missing in this patch is going to be some distortion, which I couldn't recreate. So you might want to try and add a camel fat to that or some other type of distortion, and you'll get the exact same lead from Thunder and a lot of their other tracks. Okay, so let me play it in lower octave too. Okay, so before we get started, and I'll make sure to put a little fucking sticky on this if you want to skip this portion. I'm gonna give you a little history of this. Pretty much what's going on here is this is pretty much a normal SuperSaw with a little bit of a square. It's not really that much of a square, but there's a little bit in there just to add a little bit of variety to the SuperSaw. And SuperSaws were made big thanks to Trance. Trance has been using the SuperSaw since since I was a kid. And it was made really, really popular by, I believe it was the Roland JP8000 or the 8080. It was one of those. And Trance that's pretty much a trademark of Trance. And it's funny that all these big tracks are using the SuperSaw now. And if you can, even in the breakdowns, they have SuperSaws playing chords out, which was going on in Trance since 1995, around 2000, whatever. Don't quote me on that. I'm sure it's not exact. But it's a nice history to know. SuperSaw, pretty much what it is just a shit ton of saws. Most of the time they're played in unison, and there's a shit ton of polyphony going on, a lot of voices coming out. So they tend to be really, really loud. And every time you hear one of those big room tracks, if you hear anything that sounds sort of like take into mind, that's just some saw waves. And then what they start doing is they start reducing the decay with no sustain, and you start getting those plucked leads like Dimitri Vegas and like Mike, and then you can start adding distortion and make the SuperSaw your own. Also, you can add some tubing if you desire. Anyways, let's get started. So Oscillator 1, we're going to be having a square and saw 2 wave, and the wavetable position is going to be set at 2 o'clock, which is going to give us a little bit of a square, not that much. If I could show you this visually, you can turn a square into a saw wave just by manipulation, but this is going to look, it's not going to look like a saw wave completely. Just keep that in your head. The pitch is going to be lowered by negative 0.05. This is just a technique a lot of producers use. They just lower the pitch a little bit. It just, for some weird reason, it makes the oscillator, just, and the sound in general, once you put everything together, sound bigger. So here we have negative 0.05. Intensity is going to be set to around 930, between 9 and 10. You can choose where to put it. And your amp is going to be all the way up. We're going to route this all the way to filter 1. Okay, don't worry about these little numbers here. If you followed my tutorials since, for a while, you know that they're just envelopes and modulations that we're going to be adding to these parameters later. Okay, so next we have Oscillator 2, square and saw 1 wave. Intensity same as the intensity for Oscillator 1, 930. Wavetable position all the way up. So we're going to have a pure saw wave for this, amp all the way up, okay? And route it to envelope 1. Oscillator 3, square and saw 1. Wavetable all the way up, intensity all the way up, amp pretty much set at 3 o'clock. Reason for that is just that if I were to put this up, then we would start peaking in the red and massive, and you generally don't want that. A tip I'm going to give you right now is that you kind of want all your plugins to stay in the green. I know most of the time you see that massive is peaking red, and then you move on to the compressor and it just goes back to green. In general, in theory, you don't want to have that in massive. You just want to keep a level that's green. You will never want to clip the channel. I don't know why, but a lot of producers and mixers live by that rule, so it's better not to do it. Next, we're going to go into a modulation oscillator, and here we're going to be oscillating a couple of things. We're also going to be routing a couple of things which you shouldn't worry about. We'll do that towards the end. So first off, we're going to have a ring mod for oscillator 2, which is going to be a saw wave. We're going to move the RM to around 930, pitch to 12.14, and don't worry about the 3. Next, we're going to go to phase. We're going to be adding some phase to oscillator 3. And pretty much what we're going to do is the phase is going to be set around 8 o'clock. Pitch 12.14 stays the same, okay? Okay, so next we go into the noise. Pretty much put the color all the way up. We're gonna be using white noise for this, and leave the amp down. We're gonna put envelope on it. Sorry, a macro on it later, so don't really worry about it. Next, we're gonna use a simple delay for insert 1. Dry and wet at around 10 o'clock. Time at around 3. Okay. Next, we're gonna go to filter 1, where we're gonna be applying a DAF filter. It's just another low pass filter. It just has a different characteristic when you start using the resonance a bit. Okay, so for this, we're gonna be putting the cutoff all the way down, and the resonance set to around 10. So right now you should barely hear any noise coming out, but we're gonna fix that with some modulation. Okay, so pretty much once we have that, let's start going into our envelopes. We're gonna go to envelope 4, which is pretty much by default set to the amp. So you're gonna see 4 here in the amp and in the pan. So pan just means left and right, wherever you want to pan it. Pretty much you want it to look like this. Now this is the thing I like about Massive, is that it gives you a visual representation of your envelopes compared to Silent 1 or Silent 1, however you fucking say it. So the attack for this is gonna be set at 8 o'clock, which is gonna decide how fast the sound comes out. Generally you want that all the way down or in between there, because if you have it all the way up, the sound will gradually come in. Generally, you use that for pads or kind of atmospheric type of stuff. Level all the way up, of course, we want the max volume for the sound. Decay is going to be set to around 2. Level all the way up. And our release is going to be set around 8. Okay. So once we have that, let's go into envelope 3. So for envelope 3, pretty much we're going to have a really fast attack. And this is going to be set to a knob. And what's going to happen is this envelope is going to be routed to the intensity knobs here, and pretty much all it's going to do is it's going to tell Massive, you got to change these knobs at this certain rate. So here we have the characteristics. So we're going to have a really fast attack, so the knob's going to turn. We're going to have a little bit, no delay, my bad, sorry, it looked like it had some delay. Attack all the way down, level set to around 1 o'clock. Decay to around 8, level set to 10. Release is going to be set to around 9. And then we should be done. Okay. So now we're going to drag this here to intensity. So you can see, you click here, drag it to intensity here, and we're going to set that to around 11 o'clock. You can go higher if you want. This is where you can start kind of shaping the sound a little bit more to your liking, so you can go bigger or go less. Okay. Next, we're going to do it to oscillator 2 as well. Just do that. Should be really easy. Okay, so again, 11 o'clock for that envelope modulation there. Next, we're going to go into envelope 1, which is going to be routed to our cutoff. Now you're going to start hearing some stuff. Pretty much what we want is a low attack, so attack all the way down, level all the way up. Decay set to 12, level set to 2 for decay. And our release is going to be set to around 8 o'clock. We're going to drag this to our filter 1 here. Pretty much what you're going to do is you're going to click and pull up to around 9 o'clock. Okay, so once we have that, let's just make sure we don't need, we need another envelope here. Kind of knew that. So here we have our attack is going to be set low, level set at around, let's say 11 o'clock there. So pretty much this is going to be set to our detune, which is pitch cutoff here. So pretty much what we're going to do right now is go into the decay function here, and we're going to set it to around, let's like to say 1 o'clock, level all the way up. Release is going to be high on this one. This is going to decide how fast it goes back to normal value. Same thing with the amp envelope. The release is going to decide how fast the sound goes to 0, returns back to where it was originally. So this is going to be set at 1. And we're going to have this kind of looking envelope here. Okay, so we're going to drag that to the voicing section. So pretty pretty much, oh, sorry, let's go to pitch cutoff first. You're going to turn that on. You want to set your value here to 11. This is just going to decide what the max value is going to be if you have it all the way to the right. So we on at 0.11. You want this towards the end where there's only 3, including the big line showing. And now we're going to get envelope 2. We're going to put it here. You're going to click on envelope 2 and you're going to drag it to the right until you hit that last little line. So let's do that right there. You want this centered. Now the voicing, you're going to change that to 14 unisono. Pretty much means your voicing, you're going to have 14 out of each oscillator here. I believe that's what it's saying. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Polyphon on, which pretty much is going to let you play more than one note. That's what poly means many, mono means one. Okay, so we're going to turn pan position on and we're going to go all the way to the right to full, which is going to pretty much decide the stereo kind of thing. If you have it in mono, it's going to be in the center of the mix. Generally, you want basses to be in mono. Trigger set to always, okay? Okay, so once we have that, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our LFO section now. Pretty much what we're going to do here is we're going to go to LFO 5. And we're going to be applying a sine wave. And you want it pretty much to look like this, a normal sine. Many of you probably had trigonometry, so you should know what a sine looks like. Rate is going to be set to around 2 o'clock. And we're going to be routing this to here, to the pitch of oscillator 1 and oscillator 3. Now what you want to do is you want to click and set the value on that to 10. And you got to be really subtle because it moves really fast. So let's just leave it at that. Oscillator 1, just set it to 10 if you can. And then oscillator 3, set it to 10 as well. 0.10. All that's going to do, it's another technique a lot of us producers use to make the sound a little bit more big. We're generally adding LFOs to the pitch and changing it at fast rates. What it does, it adds a little bit more accent. It gives a little bit more balls, you can say. So it's a pretty neat technique. There's also another technique that I'll show in my trans tutorial today, which is going to make your sound just sound like more like to the point, like in your face. And I'll show you guys in the next tutorial for trans, which should be out today as well. Okay, so once we have those LFOs, it's time to start adding some effects. Okay, so FX1, we're gonna have a C tube, which is a classic tube. Drive and width set to 9 o'clock, and the drive set to 9 as well. Drive is where a lot of it's gonna get louder and it's gonna distort it a little. FX2, we're gonna have a reverb, normal one. Set that to dry and wet 9 o'clock. Size at around 1 o'clock. Okay, density at 1 and color at 2. Next, we're going to EQ it. We're going to increase everything. Low shelf set to 2 o'clock. We're going to boost that by 1. 1 o'clock of boost. Frequency set to 2. High shelf boost as well. 2 o'clock. 1 o'clock. Okay. So once we have that, we should be getting a sound. Last thing we need to do is we need to add the macro so you can actually start getting stuff out of your synth. So what we're going to do is for macro 1, which is usually set to vibrato. Don't worry about that. Just go to the second one. You're going to click on that and drag it to filter 1 in the middle here for the cutoff. And pretty much what you're going to do is you're going to click and you're going to drag it all the way up to around 3 o'clock. And then next thing you want to do is you want to go to your macro here, turn the knob all the way up, and you should be getting sound coming out of your system, of your whatever, your monitors. Let's just say that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to be putting a reverb macro. So pretty much you drag this to number 2 to dry and wet. You're going to increase that to 12 o'clock. And then you're going to drag the 2 again to the size of the reverb. And you're going to drag that from 12 or 1 to 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, whatever you decide. And now we're going to drag this reverb knob here to around 9 o'clock. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some macro on the modulation oscillators. So pretty much what we're going to do here is we're going to drag the 3 to the phase here for 3. Oscillator 3, phase 3. Here, we're going to put the pitch up by 12. Okay. Next, we go into the ring mod. Sorry, it should be set by that now. Sometimes these parameters confuse me. Okay, so once we have that there, pretty much what the macro is going to do, the mod is just going to change the sound, add some phase and so forth, a lot more. And I don't, for some weird reason, phase affects the sound really good. It gives it sort of more power in a way. So just test it out and put the mod up and you'll see what I'm talking about. So here, for whatever macro you have it, whichever number, just put the number up for mod. And make sure to name them so you're organized, so you don't have to be like, okay, what the fuck is this doing? Finally, for the last one, we're going to put the vibrato to our rate. So we're going to go to oscillator. And pretty much you just go here, put the 4 here, and put the depth here. And the depth is going to be set at 9, the rate's going to be set at 2, and you just want to increase that a little bit. So here's the 4, just increase it to 3, and the 4 increase it to 12, and that's going to affect your vibrato, which I have it set to around 1 for this. So once we have all of that, we should be getting that sound, which is pretty sick. Pretty sick sound. Hopefully you guys can make some sick tunes with that, and I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. As always, like my Facebook page, subscribe to my YouTube account, like, comment. You can find my presets on my Facebook page, and don't forget, I post a lot of tips on my Twitter as well. Make sure to follow me on that as well. Anyways, guys, you have a good one.